Like, this has the makings to be the perfect unit to put into an RV. There just needs to be a few little tweaks, and I hope I can work with Signature Solar and EG4 to do that. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to One Strange Adventure. Welcome to the next video. Today we are taking our current 12 volt system out of the RV and installing a new 48 volt system. So it's the first time I've done this. Should be fine. Kind of sad I gotta take all that work out, but at the same time I'm excited that we get to do this. Special thank you to our sponsors of today's video, Signature Solar. You guys are amazing, and without further ado, let's get this video started. All right, the first thing we're going to do is loosen the cables on the solar chargers. Now that we've got the solar chargers out, we're going to disconnect the inverters. For the electrical lines on the Multi-Plus 2s, they're pinch. So you have to jab this thing up in there to release them.
Yeah.
I know I made it look light and all, but
Good thing we have a tall bay.
oh, no kidding. Well, these would be mounted sideways. I would say this is one of the downsides to the Victron system is, I mean, look at the amount of wiring I have to do. It's crazy, but it's all going to change soon. Once I'm done with all this, I can take out all those cables and disconnect it from the link distributor. After I'm done with the inverters and the solar chargers, I can then start disconnecting the batteries. Gotta put them to work. Get these daggone batteries out. That equals all that, plus those over there. Yeah, that's awesome. So at this point, the entire battery system is ripped out. 12 volt system is gone. Here's all the batteries. Let me show you inside the bay. Because this has a built-in transfer switch, I was even able to get rid of my transfer switch. So that's nice. There you have it, folks. Now the fun begins. Now we get to install the new system. Okay, I'm starting this by actually removing the cable from the Watchdog surge protector, because that was the cable that came in the RV, which is a lot tougher to work with. So I'm going to swap it out for some new cabling. Now I'm going to remove the 6.3 cable that I use to run the old inverters, because I actually only need one. So I'm going to replace that with a 6.4 running that to the breaker panel. So with the inverters, I had 6.3, two sets, or two cables of 6.3 running all the way to the two inverters. But since I only have one inverter now, and I really only need, and everything runs straight to it, I only need 6.4 cabling. But if I ever wanted to go back to a two inverter system, I could just take that one out of the inverter and run it to like a parallel junction box, and then just run two lines off of that. So it would, I could still parallel them if I wanted to. But for now, we just need one. All right, I got that wired into the panel, and time to start putting stuff back together. So with the inverter, it says to not mount it on a combustible material. We went to the local hardware store. I'm going to mount that on the wall, and then the inverter will be mounted on that. So that's what I'm going to do next. If you watched my previous video, you know we built a battery frame, so I'm going to reinstall that because these batteries are the same dimensions. So this is going to be something like that. Get that inverter as high as I can. All right, so the inverter actually comes with a template. I thought it was trash, so I folded it up, but it's actually the template. So like this is the screen, this is the 6 holes where you mount it. So it's pretty cool. It actually comes with the template. That is nice because it gives you a, not only can I see where the holes are, but it can also kind of give me an idea of the layout and the spacing here.
Let's move this up out of the way for a second so that
yeah, that thing's annoying. But yeah, I think right here would be good.
That's not too close to the top.
Well, so the cables, all the stuff comes in from the bottom and the airflow comes in from the sides. And it's just a very thin little piece of metal that comes up to this. Oh, okay. Not the top of the
inverter itself.
No, because you got to be able to get above it to actually screw it in. I get that middle one in, and then I can level it and get the rest of them drilled in. Okay. So what I think I'm going to do is go ahead and pre-drill a hole. That's the way it goes. So this is the main breaker. This is individual breakers. This is your solar cutoff switches. That's your main power, inverter power. So you can have everything else on when the inverter can be off. All right, let me get those last 3, and then I'll put the track on.
Catch the thing. So you're welcome.
All right, so here's the thing. When I was installing this system, I was running against the clock, and I needed to get it done in one day so that I could restore power and we could have power for the night. Now we're using 5 kilowatts, so the settings are a little different on this thing. It's been a long day. I got started at 9 a.m. It's currently 6:43. It's already dark outside. Just got this thing. I think I got it right now. All right, she's turning the AC on now. All right, turn another AC on. All right, go ahead and turn the third one on. Are they on? Sweet. I have the inverter up and running. Everything is good. It has all your information there, and I'll show you guys what it looks like on the app. And well, there is an app, so that's awesome. And I have like a workstation on online, so I can show you guys what that looks like too. But I wanted to give you an idea of what it all looks like. So there's my batteries. There's the cables kind of looped because the terminals are on the sides instead of like on top of it. I wish they were on top of it just so I could use my bus bar. And then there's all the communication cables down there looking like Christmas time with the positive wires. And then there's an orange one right there that kind of goes back behind the wall. And that orange one comes back up in right there. And what that does is that's giving the inverter all the information about from the batteries. They communicate with the inverter and tell it exactly how charged they are. It knows that there's 4 batteries. It also knows that there's 4 batteries in parallel. It knows what the overall capacity is. Once you start using the batteries, it knows what the capacity is for each battery, what the temperature is for each battery. It's amazing how much information is being sent through that. Now, because you're doing that, you do have to program the batteries to know where they're at kind of in their place. And you do that by these little ID switches right here. That tells it that that is battery 0. So the main battery, all the communication is coming off of. That is battery 1, battery 2, and battery 3. You notice that it's not intuitive as you just click like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Like this one has 1 and 2 down. So you have to make sure that you're looking at the manuals to know what sequence they should be in. So that was something I had to learn because I didn't have to do that with the Victron equipment because I was using a battery shunt. So the shunt gave all that information, so I didn't really have to do that. But yeah, so that's how the batteries work. And if you don't know, the batteries have an on-off switch and a breaker, so I can cut power from one battery. If one battery goes out, I can do that. The next thing I want to show you guys is I did run my track system, so up and down across the bottom here. It didn't work quite as well as with the Victron, and the reason being is this, it's kind of thicker, and where the cables come out, they come out a little bit further out, so it's not directly over. So the cables are kind of going back. And if you've ever worked with 6/4 cabling for electricity, you know that it's not going to bend that well. But I do have it all covered and protected, so going down the road, none of these edges can get into the wires itself. I went ahead and covered these as well, and then each of the battery lines coming in. Future improvement, I'm going to put some type of wall, maybe like a plexiglass over this, so that nothing can accidentally touch the terminals. I will say I'm not as concerned about it since the terminals are kind of inset, so if something hits that right there, they're not touching at all. Like the 12 volts were sticking out like this. So if something just kind of pushed into it, it could touch terminals. I did end up using my Lynx distributor, just one of them. I had 2 Lynx distributors here, and the reason I did that is because if I ever wanted to get another one of these and run this in parallel, I wanted to be able to easily add it without having to do a whole bunch of reconfiguration. So the only thing I would have to do, and I have wall space here, is I would be able to add that inverter, run the battery line straight off the Lynx distributor, and where the grid comes in right here, I would actually just run that to a box where it would split the signal and then come in over here. And then same thing, it would, both of these outputs would go to that box, turn it into one, and send it back to the panel. So I could essentially have 12,000 watts, 6,000 watts per line, and what that is you're essentially running at like a true 50 amp at that point. So I'm going to take this panel off real quick and show you guys exactly how I wired it up. So here's how it's wired, and I'll start from left to right here. Here's my communication cable coming in. So that's the one running from the batteries into the communication port there, and that's what gives the inverter all the information about my batteries, the charge, the capacity, the number of batteries in the line. Here's my cables coming in from the Lynx distributor. So this is what's powering it, what is pushing juice back to my batteries when it's charging, and I'm going to talk about charging in just a minute. So here's where everything comes in. This is going to my loads. So these two right here is your hot 1 and hot 2 essentially, and that is what is going to the panel inside the RV and actually powering everything. This next one right here, this middle one, this is where my grid is coming in. And so the way I have mine set up is that the plug on the outside of my RV goes to my Watchdog surge protector. My surge protector comes in right here. That provides power to the inverter, and then the inverter does its thing and pushes it back out here and sends it to the loads. This one coming in right here on this side is the generator. These 4 cables over here on this side, right here, is where my solar is coming in. So you have solar line or PV array 1 and PV array 2. So I have them wired up. There's 1200 watts of solar power going to each one. Now this thing can hold, I believe it's 4,000 watts of solar. Like it's way up there. I don't have enough roof space to actually get to the point where I'm overloading that. So all your neutrals go to that one back there. All your grounds go to this one back here on this line. If you notice, there's like red right here. I used ferrules on everything, and just makes it way cleaner to use the ferrules instead of trying to like smash, you know, the loose copper wires up into these little tiny holes and making sure that you're clamping down on all of them. The ferrules just made that job way easier. You notice the only one that doesn't have it is this is the generator one, is because those are like solid copper wire and it is tough to work with. Since it's solid, you don't really need them anyway, so I just put them up in there and screwed it in. So everything was torqued down. That's pretty much it. Everything is everything's up and running. These are the things I was talking about. You have to kind of provide on your own. And so little trick here. This is made for like one solid wire because you see the shape here, not 2 wires coming into the same port. So if you notice, what I did is I took a piece of cable and I kind of ran it horizontal here, and then I tightened it down so that this is clamping down into this and these, because what was happening is these little points right here were pushing right into my battery cables, and I didn't like that. So I ran that, and that just kind of clamps it down and keeps everything tight. Same with my solar cables over here. So yeah, that was that's it. Oh, it's turning on. It runs a fan every once in a while. I'll say that one was a little bit of a surprise of how much it actually runs the fan. I don't know what it's doing, because right now it's just a pass-through, and why it actually needs the fan. But I didn't want to mess with any of the settings. You can mess with your fan settings, but if you mess it up and it doesn't cool the way it needs to cool, you can really damage the unit. So they recommended not messing with that. Down in here, it's not so bad inside. It kind of just sounds like your refrigerator kicking on or something like that. Like it's not horrible. So we've gotten used to it. We don't really even hear it anymore. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how I wired it in. It was pretty straightforward. Way less cabling than the Victron system, of course, because you have a lot more DC side that you got to connect, where this inverter basically is all of that. So I'm really happy with this. All right, here's some final thoughts on this new system. We absolutely love it so far. For example, going down the road, we had our main AC running, and this thing was pulling in over 1,800 watts of solar, which is just nuts. I don't think I've ever seen 1,800 watts on the Victron system, and it was kind of a cloudy day. So I'll show you a little bit of what that looks like. That's going to be in a following video kind of coming up, and we have some other news that we're going to share with you guys in that video too. But going down the road, like this was doing absolutely great. It was pulling 1,800 watts. The AC pulls about 1,300. So on top of that, your parasitic draw is around 200. So that's about 1,500 watts. It was running the AC, and the batteries basically weren't putting anything into it. So this was converting the solar into AC and just running everything off of the solar that was coming in. My batteries were just sitting there idle. Like the connection point even disappeared between the batteries, and that it's showing that the batteries are not being utilized, which is insane. So basically the whole RV was running on solar. That's pretty cool. Here's one of the downsides that I've learned. This does not play nice with anything other than split phase 50 amp. So I'm gonna have to figure out, because if we plug into a 30 amp or even a 15 or 20, like 110 outlet, we're gonna need to figure out how to work with that. They do make this thing called the charge verter, where you can kind of put it into the system and you just run off your batteries, and it would be pushing juice into the system and charging your batteries while you're using them. So that's one of the workarounds. What I'd really love to do is work with EG4 and make like a RV specific version of this. I don't know if we'll ever get to that point, we'll be able to do that, but it would be really nice for that to kind of be built into this. The second thing that would be nice to be built into it is if it could have the same components as the charge inverter, so that when the generators turn on, you don't have to worry about dirty power, and it would just do its thing. Even if they had to make it a little bit bigger, like, I would definitely understand. And if they could just work those components into it. Maybe we get a 6000 RV instead of an XP. I don't know. But yeah, I think like this has the makings to be the perfect unit to put into an RV. There just needs to be a few little tweaks, and I hope I can work with Signature Solar and EG4 to do that. Now, I know some people are going to ask, well, you still have 12 volt appliances, or you still have 12 volt things in your RV. How did you convert the 48 volt to 12 volt? And I'm going to show you how I did that. So here's a cool thing about the way I set this up. You wouldn't necessarily have to touch anything of the battery system in your stock battery, like your stock RV. You could leave your 12 volt system basically in there and add this 48 volt system to it, so that the 48 volt system runs all your AC draws and your current 12 volt system just runs your 12 volt stuff. And it would still get its charge and all that other good stuff. So I think that makes this a little bit easier. The reason I wasn't able to do that is because I had already ripped all the stock stuff out from my 12 volt system in order to put that other big 12 volt system in. So here's what I did. I put a mini 12 volt lithium battery. It's 100 amp hour just to run my 12 volt stuff. And then I got this Victron Blue Smart Charger. And what that does, it actually plugs into the outlet up there and uses 110 to keep that battery charged. So in a way, my 48 volt batteries are still charging the 12 volt battery, because 48 volt is getting converted to AC power. AC is going out through the panels, or out through the box in the RV, the breaker panel. And then that breaker panel is powering that 110 outlet up there. And that 110 outlet is powering my charger, and that charger is charging my 12 volt system. So in a roundabout way, my 48 volt system is charging my 12 volt system. When I'm plugged up to shore power, it's just getting its stuff from shore power. And you can program that little charger to basically do whatever you want. So once it gets down to a certain voltage on my 12 volt, it just starts charging and then cuts off when it needs to. So I always have a charger there. So I felt like that was a better way, other than doing like a 48 to 12 volt converters. I got a lot of feedback that you should have your loads running on a battery, not on electronics. And I didn't want to have to wire in 3 of those, because the only thing they have for 48 volt to 12 volt is a 30 amp converter right now. And your hydraulic system pulls about 75 to 80 amps when it's running. So if I'm doing the math, 30 amps each, and you're probably not going to get a true 30 amps out of every one of those. I would need 3 of them. I would have to run 3 of them in parallel and make sure that that is going to a bus bar where all your 12 volt stuff would be kind of coming off of that. So I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do all that. So I just put a little battery in here with that charger, plugged it in, I'm good to go. Well, that does it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed a look at the new system. We have an RV running on 48 volts, 48 volt batteries, which is pretty cool.